Aha. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Prospect Mountain JMA Joint Board. It is April 4th, 2023. Meeting was called to order at 6:30 p.m. Prior to any other business, we'll begin with reorganization of the board. Are there any nominations for board chair? This year it should be a member representing Barnstead.
I make a motion to nominate Jason Henry as board chair.
Second that.
Got a nomination for Jason Henry to serve as chair of the board, made by Mrs. Drolet and seconded by Ann Pierce. Any other nominations? Hearing none. Any discussion on Mr. Henry's nomination? Not from you.
Tried.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Henry, it's your meeting.
I've been able to avoid this all along. Do you want to move over to there?
Get up here.
I'm the board chair. I can make you move anywhere I want.
You're all going to regret
You
this.
just keep that up. I can make a the agenda. I can make you put you on
I bet they get longer.
I'm going to pull a Jason. I move we nominate Carol Locke as vice chair.
Second. Pam nominated and I seconded.
Got it. Ask if there are any other nominations.
I've enjoyed
Is there any other? Is there any other nominations? Seeing none, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? There you go.
I've never had you on my right.
Secretary.
Slow down. Let Carol come on up here.
You still have to
See?
run the meeting, but sorry.
Yeah, I know. So we get the vice chair. Okay, so we also need a nomination for board secretary. Do I hear any nominations?
I make a motion to nominate Lila Atkins as board secretary.
Ooh, second. Probably should do it as chairman, we'll do it anyways.
I'll second it.
Oh, you're not allowed to second as chair.
But I just probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Frowned upon.
I think it's a great choice. That's my discussion.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain.
One abstention. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you.
Oh, no, secretary. Okay, next up, I ask that we all please rise so we can do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, ask for a roll call, starting now with Brandon.
Brandon Pelletier.
Pam McLeod.
Eunice Landry.
Jay Fitzpatrick.
Carol Locke.
Jason Henry.
Tim Broderick.
Heidi Jufer.
Lila Atkins.
Eliza Drolet.
Ann Pierce.
Lauren Ferruccio.
Grace Simonson.
Thank you. And we'll start with our first public input. In public? Going once, twice. All right. No public input today. Next up, the agenda review. I would like to ask that we move for action items, I'd like to move donation of U.S. Constitution books to our first thing that we do right after approval of meeting minutes.
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Anything else to be added? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Agenda. Hey, I'll take a motion for approval of meeting minutes of March 7th, 2023.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 7th, 2023.
Second.
Discussion. Changes, omissions. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstained? All right. And I will turn it over, Tim, for the donation of U.S. Constitution books. So,
I think my only role here is to introduce Hal Shurtleff, whose organization he can tell you about has offered to donate a number of pocket constitutions, you all have one in front of you, to all 3 schools.
Yes, I want to thank you very much. My name is Hal Shurtleff. I'm the co-founder and director of Camp Constitution, a New Hampshire-based charitable trust. I'm with my good friend, our camp chaplain, Reverend Stevie Kraft, who lives in Lexington, Massachusetts. And we've been making donations to schools around the region since we started back in '09. I think we distributed over 30,000 pocket constitutions. We also encourage people to read them and to learn about them. I was so pleased to see all of you reading them on your desk when you received them. These are published by the National Center for Constitutional Studies. It also contains the Declaration of Independence, and it contains some quotes from the various founders about the Constitution. And I know how important this is because some years ago, I got a chance to speak at Keene State College on Constitution Day, and there was about 150 students there, and each one had one of these on their desk, on their chairs. And I said that this is a owner's manual for a free people, and if you don't really like to be a free person, then leave that Constitution where it is. I'll pick some up and give them to people who will. At the end of the meeting, that one Constitution was on those chairs. So. And I think that this would be a real great blessing to the school system because a lot of students aren't learning much about this. And if you ever watch those man on woman on the street interviews when they ask them simply questions like, what's the first 10 amendments known as? And they have no clue. So I think it would be real great. And I noticed too that you have a history club learning center about 2 blocks from the Lexington Battle Green. And we would love to offer a tour. I don't know how big your history club is, but we'd love to offer a tour of Lexington and Concord, and at some point in the near future. So anyway, here we are. And I brought. I guess you didn't think I'd actually physically bring them, but we're here. They're here. So.
You brought them.
And again, when these run out, will be more behind us. So thank you very much. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so take a motion to accept the donation.
Make a motion to accept the donation of the U.S. Constitution books with gratitude.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you very much.
All right.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. All right.
Have a good day.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to Finance Committee. Revenues, expenditure reports in our packets. Impact fees from the town. Is there anything you'd like to go over?
For the expense report, no, the only question that was raised were the health insurance, which I will do an analysis and bring back why the differences.
I make a motion to accept the revenues and expense report as presented.
Second.
Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So what about the impact fees from the town of Barnstead? That wasn't in that motion, so we want to talk about that separately.
Do we have to accept the funds? Or is it just a
I think I need
function?
to find out more information before we accept the funds.
Yeah, it might be that the Barnstead Board has to accept that.
You're talking the 70.
It was sent here to the high school with the idea that it's intended to be applied toward the construction bond, but that's Barnstead's bond.
That's fine.
So
Okay.
we'll seek clarification.
Okay.
All right. Well, we won't accept it. 70,000, I'll take it.
Yeah. Going on, Trip.
Yeah.
All right.
Heidi already said I'm not allowed to spend it.
So building and grounds, we have a report in our packet. Any questions, concerns? I do have one. The sound system says he emailed, got no answer back. Can you make a phone call and try to follow up and maybe push a little bit to get the sound system?
He said he called also, so I emailed that call.
And a call.
Yeah, that's what he says.
That's right. Well, if we can escalate it then maybe to another level if it's not getting
Yeah.
things through.
We haven't had an actual buildings and grounds meeting in quite some time. I don't know if there's anything on the horizon. This has been like repetitive issues. There hasn't been anything new on our report lately. We don't know what the future plan is.
We probably need to have a meeting. I might say we, I mean, whoever's on the committee.
Sorry, Tim.
The committee should have a meeting, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Well, we have to determine committees.
Yeah, it's on here later.
It's on my report.
So do we take a vote to accept the buildings and grounds? Or no, we don't need to. Okay, Prospect Mountain High School student rep report, which was given to us. Can you give us some highlights?
Good evening. Looking at school organizations and events, we had a very busy month in the past month. For FBLA, they collected over 1,700 books for local libraries. They continue to hold Mental Health Mondays to spread awareness of the importance of mental health. And last week, they competed at the New Hampshire State Conference, while their students represented Prospect Mountain and had an incredible time networking with over 400 students from across New Hampshire. Prospect took home 2 first-place prizes, 2 second-place prizes, 2 awards, among other achievements such as scholarships for the students. In Tri-M, they hosted a Music in Our Schools month with dress-up days and karaoke in the lunchroom to celebrate music. And they had the first district concert with the high school and both middle schools since before the pandemic, and it went really well, and there was a huge turnout. So they're also hosting a movie night this Friday to bring the community together. And for National Art Honor Society, they're going to the Oscar Foss Public Library in Barnstead to paint window murals tomorrow. National Honor Society, 2 students collected donations for the past 2 weeks for a Live and Let Live farm in Chichester, New Hampshire. And 1 student organized a group to attend the wheelchair basketball tournament in Concord at NHTI a few weeks ago, which went smoothly and was a great tournament. Miss Barber's literary magazine Pack Time has been invited to attend an awards ceremony at UNH on April 14th for the New Hampshire Press Association Distinguished Journalism Contest for a literary magazine entry from the first 2 Pack sessions. At this event, they'll have a chance to discuss and present their work and meet with other journalists from across the state and network with colleges about journalism programs. In the robotics club, they competed in their first 2 district events. The first event in Rhode Island, they finished as finalists, and at their second event at UNH, they won the semifinals and took home the quality award. They're attending the New England District Champs this week at the Big E in Springfield, Mass. For the LRTC medical classes at Kingswood, which Prospect students attend on Saturday, March 25th, the LRTC Health Science class attended their HOSA state conference where students competed in many different events. Lakes Region students were very successful in this year's competition, and Prospect had 5 students going on to states with the opportunity to compete at the international conference held in Texas in June of 2023. All 6 students in the LRTC LNA class passed their state LNA testing last week and are now well on their way to meeting all the requirements for a medical career. The Library of America Poetry, we had 1 freshman student recently submitted 3 poems to the Library of America Poetry for their annual contest, and 1 poem was accepted to be published in their 2023 student poetry contest. And then for New Hampshire 4-H, 1 student was chosen to present the New Hampshire 4-H in Washington, D.C. at the beginning of March. And while there, the student got to work with other students to identify agriculture issues in the state and brainstorm potential solutions with other 4-H students throughout the country. And then something I'd just like to add, Prospect had the first sophomore to be accepted into St. Paul's Advanced Studies program. They just started accepting sophomores, and Prospect had the first one, so I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's great.
In athletics, all spring athletics have started, and yesterday 13 seniors were awarded the NHIAA Scholar Athlete Award and attended the ceremony to be recognized for their athletic and academic achievements. That's all I have.
I just wanted to add, with the district concert, in the past, it used to be that we'd have Barnstead play,
Alton play, the high school, and then they may do one number together. This time they did them all together, which was really cool to watch. And they brought the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders over to the high school. They practiced all day, and there were 3 numbers by the chorus, and it was, you couldn't distinguish between Barnstead, Alton, or even the high school kids. They look so young to me. And then the band did the same, so they all played on stage. It was really cool to listen to them because they merged after one day of work. So lots of kudos to our music department for bringing them together and having that concert. I was very impressed. And it was nice because you could see your 8th graders playing with the high schoolers, and they're going to go on to it next year.
The
So-
T-shirts were really cool too. They had like a, "We are almost Prospect."
Yeah, they had T-shirts.
Like,
Yeah, it was really cool. I
and then
enjoyed
the
it a
high
lot.
schoolers
And
had the Prospect.
as I said in the past, it was always separated. So Barnstead would do some numbers and Alton, and I thought it was just really nice that they all merged together and did theirs together. So.
I'll add tennis, at least for the girls yesterday, had their first home game yesterday. I goat roped my daughter, the only freshman on the team to play. But I played Interlakes, and it looks like that we pretty much won the match, so it was interesting to watch yesterday. There is a home match tomorrow, and then I believe a away match on Friday up in Berlin. So, and the boys, I know, had a game yesterday too. I just don't know how it went, but off and running, so it went well. Thank you very much for that report. It's awesome. Next, moving on to the principal's report.
Good evening, everyone. To piggyback off of what Carol was just saying, we identified today that the director, the music director of Barnstead, is a graduate of Prospect here, who learned under Greg Nevieu when he was teaching at Barnstead, and of course under Tom Stevens when she was here as well. So it was neat to have full circle in that regard, all 3 of them here on the same stage, and it did make Mr. Stevens feel really old. We have begun the scheduling process. We begun this back in February. We are working on section numbers for next year. That is when we look at how many students signed up for a particular class, how many sections of that class we're going to run, and determining who's going to teach it. And then what we do is plug it into the system, the student information system, Infinite Campus. It will then generate a matrix as to what can run where and when, and what students can get it. And so we are about a week away from running that first matrix, and we'll see how scheduling is going to look for next year. Tomorrow, I'm actually visiting Alton Central School in the morning, where we'll be doing STAR testing, which I think is in Assistant Superintendent Chizokis' report. I'll be visiting the 8th graders at both schools over the next couple of weeks to talk about the importance of trying hard on this test for the sake of us getting an idea of where they are. So if there's anything that we can do to readjust where classes are for next year and what they're enrolled in, that's going to be a helpful thing. We're also testing the freshmen here at the high school. I think April 12th, I think, is when we're doing it. So we also, we're starting our session 7 pack. We have 8 sessions lined up, so we're on session 7. It has been a lot of work to organize this and stay on top of it, but we're doing it, and it seems to be that kids are still appreciating it. One of the things that we introduced, one of the activities we introduced last session during session 6 is an esports club. So if you're not familiar with esports, this is online gaming where kids can actually compete against other schools without ever having to leave bedroom or classroom. So Tim put me in touch with a connection that he had in Massachusetts, so I corresponded with her. She gave some helpful tips as to the first steps of making this happen. So we're running it as a pack, and it fills up very quickly. And we're going to attempt to have a spring after-school video game club that can lay the foundations for a fully functioning, legitimate esports team in the fall. So if everything goes according to plan, that's where we'll be in the fall. So.
Awesome.
Are you considering doing less sessions next year?
For PAC?
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. What we find is that we always have a nice, robust list, but it's tough to it's tough to do ping pong when 4 kids sign up for it.
Right.
So we offer a lot more than what we probably need to, just for the sake of making sure that there's enough for everybody. But we do have activities that end up having no one in that we then cancel, and then we have activities where, like volleyball, for example, 38 students can sign up for session 7 volleyball, and 38 students. I put that out at 7 o'clock last night, and by the time school started this morning, we had 38 already signed up for it. So some of the more popular physical activities sign up, the demand is very high very quickly. So we'll continue to offer as much as we can just to make sure that we're hitting everybody.
Any other questions for the principal? All right, thank you very much. You're welcome. In our packet, we have a memo from Mr. Zekis. Mr. J.
Matt is out of town tonight. What you have, and I think this was in your emailed packet, so some of you may have had an opportunity to take a look at this, is labeled draft revised evaluation plan. So this is a product of the committee that was established under your most recent collective bargaining agreement with the Prospect Mountain Teachers Association. It's a committee comprised of 3 members of the association and 3 individuals appointed by administration. Their work has been facilitated by Mr. Jazokis. The part of Article 511 in the CBA that you mutually wrote during negotiations last year to create this committee states that any recommendation made by a majority of the committee shall be presented to the board and the association by May 15th, and then upon approval by the board and ratification by the membership of the association, changes shall become effective for the following school year. The reason I'm reading you that language is because you are being presented tonight, in accordance with this language, a recommendation that was made by a majority. In fact, it was made unanimously by that committee. However, it has already been presented for ratification by the membership of the association, and they did not. So my suggestion to you tonight is there is no reason to approve this, because until both parties take the same action, you're not done. But the good news is it's not May 15th, and you have another meeting of the joint board at the beginning of May. So my suggestion is that I will correspond with the president of the PMTA and have Mr. Jazokis pull the 6 members of the committee back together. And I see that it says any recommendation, not the recommendation. That tells me there could be more than one. And perhaps we'll have something for you in May. Unless you want to do something else.
No, I think you should get on the same page. It'd probably be helpful. Next up, Superintendent Broderick's report.
I woke up this morning expecting to be here apologizing to you for not being as prepared as I normally like to be. And instead, I have a report with 9 items on it. I'd like to begin by welcoming Lauren Ferruccio, a new Alton School Board member and member of the Joint Board.
Welcome.
And by congratulating Brandy Pelletier and Lila Atkins on their re-election in Barnstead. You also all already know that all warrant articles passed, both in the town meeting in Barnstead and on the election ballot in Alton, which means that the next contribution to the high school athletic fields funds has been approved. The next contribution and the final of 3 contributions to the technology fund was approved. And the Prospect Mountain Educational Support Professionals Association collective bargaining agreement was Sanbornized, has been funded now by the voters in both towns. That's all great news. I think when we do meet with the Buildings and Grounds Committee, we can probably take a look at the amount of money that's going to be in that athletic fields funds and start talking about whether resurfacing the track or the tennis courts is our preferred next project and start looking at pricing. I think I know which way it's going to go. To my report, there's a memo in your packet. On open enrollment, I would like you to consider a couple of actions tonight. You know that the open enrollment RSA 194D warrant articles passed in both towns. That means that you may now operate this school as an open enrollment school under state law. Whatever that means, the State Board of Education in the RSA is responsible for publishing rules about how this works, and they have never done so. However, I've been in touch with folks at the Department of Education since the elections, and they're working on it. So I have a meeting there tomorrow afternoon to look at their draft guidance, both for parents and for districts. And if it is okay with you, I wonder if you would consider endorsing, at least in a preliminary manner, my first attachment, which is admissions criteria. My proposal is that I present this at the Department of Education to see if it's consistent with what they're looking for, find out if they want more. I've left it that the committee itself would create a rubric in order to evaluate applications against these criteria. The Board of Education, or I should say the staff at the Department of Education, are already talking about if there is an excess of applications. So let's say you take the next recommendation and admit no more than 30 ninth graders next year, and there are 40 applications. The purpose of the admissions criteria would simply be to determine whether or not a candidate qualifies for admission, not to rank them in order, because if these rules go through the state board the way they're talking about now, because they are leaning toward, I understand, a lottery, requiring a lottery if we have more applicants who qualify for admission than we have spaces available. This is all very preliminary. So for tonight, I wonder if you would take a look at this, give me feedback. If you're not ready to support it, that's fine too. I don't think we're going to finalize any of this for at least the next month, if not a couple. And then the next item on this part of my report, I am asking you to think about not more than 30 incoming ninth graders, maybe up to 10 if you feel comfortable taking in some 10th graders, and then no 11th or 12th grade students unless they both meet the admissions criteria and are siblings of a 9th or 10th grader who also meets the admissions criteria and has applied. I've already told you that I'm going to the DOE. I've already told you that I would put it to the admissions committee to create a rubric based on the admissions criteria. I didn't highlight, as I wrote here, that it would be the principal and the director of guidance's job to bring that committee together and figure that out, but I can help, having done this before. I also suggest that for this year at least, you might want to consider taking applications by June 15th and then making decisions relatively quickly, because I think that we're at the beginning of what's going to end up being a process over the summer without any guarantee that students from outside of these two towns will walk through the doors next September. I think that really remains to be seen. And then if we were ever in a situation where we had fewer students attending the school under open enrollment than seats you had opened, we could conduct rolling admissions, but only after we had evaluated those applications that came in by the initial deadline. So I'm looking for you to discuss these ideas. Whatever level of approval or guidance you're willing to give me will be helpful, and then I'll be back next month.
Tim, how do you plan to make parents aware in other communities that this is an open enrollment school now? I mean, how are we advertising ourselves?
So step one will be to launch our website, which I think I skipped over the bullet point, which should be ready shortly after April vacation. So I anticipate having a separate page on the website that talks about open enrollment and at least what we understand it means right now, that features an apply here button that allows electronic submission of applications. Once that exists, we can use a QR code or a direct link. And honestly, I think social media marketing probably makes more sense than any kind of print mail or other, hard media marketing.
I was already hit up by some people from another town asking when the website's going to be up so they start applying.
Are there any complications with contracts with other towns? So contract with Guilford, do you know if there's any complications around that? No?
We'll find out.
We'll find out, okay. Just was curious.
I think there are going to be a lot of opinions, but what the actual law means and how the State Board of Education interprets it just remains to be seen.
Okay.
I mean, I like the grades, attendance, teacher, counselor recommendation. I think that's standard, that's good. I mean, I think it's gonna be a learning curve. So to have something in place would be a good idea.
The other item I have, and I have it under future agenda items, is that I'm going to have to take a look with Debbie at your existing policies regarding residency and tuition and that sort of thing. We just looked at them about a year ago for students tuitioning in. Some of those may have to be tweaked a little bit in order to correspond, accurately with open enrollment. So you can look for that in May at your next meeting.
What about other activities at their current school?
So what we've been telling folks and our initial, this is all pretty informal guidance I've been getting, right, so far from the department, again, because the state board hasn't issued rules. But we've been in agreement with them that once a student enrolls at Prospect Mountain High School, that student becomes a Prospect Mountain student and is therefore a Prospect Mountain student for the purposes of playing sports, participating in clubs and activities, joining the history club and going on the trip to Europe. I mean, everything.
Did you mean for the admissions criteria?
Sorry.
My question was for admissions.
So can you rephrase it for me? I'm sorry. Mrs.
Giving
Aldridge.
weight to those, what they may have participated in already.
Oh, I see.
that what
So
you meant?
that's an interesting question.
Is that what you meant, Enos?
Yes.
Under the applicant's prior commitment to
I
education?
thought that's what I said, but that's all right.
You probably did. It's been a long day. I'm sorry.
I think it's a good one. What else have they done?
Right, and what do they bring that maybe we don't have?
I was just thinking about our experience with Cole Brown. I mean, it was like applying for college. They
Yeah.
wanted to know and
Right.
they focused on the athletes. But it's good to see a well-rounded student.
But maybe we need other stuff, like a standing bass player for the jazz band, or
Right.
who knows what.
So I've added a bullet under the applicant's prior commitment to education that reads,